iHeartRadioNews.com.
Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living
with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome! Wow, new kind of applause. You are tuned into my weekly talk radio show called Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa every Tuesday at naturally high noon on Universal Broadcasting Network out of the Sunset Gower Studios in Hollywood, California. And then again Thursday at 7, Saturday at 1 on my syndicated CNBC News Radio channel, KCAA AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and now everywhere on iHeartRadio, whatever station that is for you. And this is a show about hope and happiness. So there's no CNN, no constantly negative news, no gossip, no scandal, and no K-words, no Kardashian talk, and no Kanye talk at all. Instead, I want you to focus on your own reality show and how you can be happy 88% of the time. And we're going to start off with some peace shout-outs to my planet travelers, and I had a great time in both San Juan Capistrano and in Florida. So we'll start with Kimberly Guler from the Air Force, Christine and the Inspiration Boutique, my Uber driver Rodney, Eric and Linnea from WIM, and then my excellent customer service awards go to Meg from PayPal, Trevor and Sheldon from Wyndham Buena Vista in Florida, Rose, the MTD company, Lyft driver Ernesto from Venezuela, peace in, peace out, Diamond Resorts, fabulous customer service, Dwayne, Damon, and Maribel, Amtrak, Dave, Art, and Tim, and San Juan Capistrano volunteer welcomer Terry Mulligan, and finally Wanda from American Airlines. Peace in, peace out from Dr. Marissa. Thank you for making my life journey a little bit more fun and smooth. And new listener friends I met these last 2 weeks at CEO Space, Florida, and in San Juan Capistrano. Thank you for tuning in and becoming new fans of Dr. Marissa. And I promise to splatter you with more hope and happiness. And thanks to you, my YouTube views have now gone from 300 to 74,300 in just 2 years. Thank you so much. And it's because of guests like I have today. I'm so honored and pleased to have today's guest with me. Carrie Kasem is a multimedia personality, producer, and writer who has anchored numerous music, talk, and entertainment programs for both radio and television. Carrie is the daughter of the late radio host and icon Casey Kasem. Since 1997, Carrie has followed in her father's footsteps, hosting many radio and TV programs, including MTV, E! Network, Fox, and 6 years with 97.1 FM Talk in LA. Kasem was co-host of the international syndicated Six Sense and Nikki Sixx for 4 years, but left the show to fight for her father and to lobby for the Visitation Bill AB 2034 in California, a vision which in less than 6 months has seen legislation in 4 other states. She founded the Kasem Cares Foundation to establish and fight for the rights to have visitation and reasonable access to an ailing parent, especially when under the care and control of an uncooperative spouse or sibling. She's been on The View, People Magazine, CNN, Good Morning America, NBC, and more. Please welcome to my studio, Carrie Kasem. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to start by talking about your famous father.
Sure.
So he was the #1 radio recognized name with the top 10 with Casey Kasem, or the top 40 music, started in 1970.
Yes.
Yeah. So your memories of his going through this were what?
going through, like doing his shows. And, you know, I went a few times. He really kept us out of the limelight in Hollywood, and he didn't want us there. But I definitely got to see him do his show. In fact, as I got older, that's when I worked for him for many years.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I learned, I was an intern for him. I went to radio school, and as I was in school, I worked for his show, getting up at 3 or 4 in the morning and doing all the copies and doing kind of the gopher work, you know, the intern work, learning from the ground up. And that's really when I got to see him work, is when I was older. You know, as a kid, I just knew him as Shaggy on Scooby-Doo, you know, and his 350 cartoons that he did. Oh, that's Dad. That's Dad.
I didn't even know that until I did the research. Yeah. Who knew? Who knew?
A lot of people don't, and when they hear it, they say, "What? Casey Kasem was Shaggy?"
Yeah, that's beautiful. What would be your favorite memory of working with him?
Oh, working with him. Just what he taught me. You know, he said, always be sincere. If you don't believe in something, people are going to hear it in your voice. And don't ever, you know, he was offered millions and millions of dollars for cereal ads and restaurant ads and you know, soda ads, and he wouldn't do it because he didn't believe. He was a vegan. He wouldn't do anything dealing with animal products, not at all. And he could have made so much money, and he did make money, so he could turn those things down, and I think he would have, even if he wasn't making the money, because he was his morals and his ethics were extremely important to him. Yeah.
My daughter is now a big fan because she's vegan, and I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was vegan for 24 years. I'm now a strict vegetarian, but yes, it was because, and he never ever, when he would teach, he would lead by example. He would never tell us to be vegetarians. He never said, you need to eat this way. Never once.
Right.
And I grew up going, why does Dad eat that way? Why is Dad doing this? And I'd ask him questions, and he'd tell me why, but he would never make me. And I think that's why at 12 I became a vegan, and vegan for 24 years. Right. And then I realized how bad soy was for you, and how I was allergic to wheat and all this. So I got off all that. And now I eat eggs, but besides that, I'm pretty strict still.
Well, that's great. My daughter's a big vegan. She runs the club over at Cornell, and
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Was one of the reasons why she chose Cornell, because they had great vegan food. But anyways, if you've just tuned in and you're wondering who I have in the studio today, it is Carrie Kasem, the daughter of the late wonderful radio icon and Shaggy on Scooby-Doo, Casey Kasem. And I did want to play a little clip of his last broadcast, 39 years on the air. I heard he was a bit of a perfectionist, and I think that's why he did so well. But he is, here's his very last broadcast that I'd just like to play to remind us all of the powerhouse that he was.
I'm Casey Kasem. Well, now we're up to the #1 song in the land, and our look back at 4 amazing decades, counting them down. The countdown began on the 4th of July, 1970. It was an idea that my partner Don Bastani and I came up with. Our first show took more than 18 hours to record, and at first we only had 7 stations. But Don and I believed, and so did a growing number of listeners. Back then, there were no long-distance dedications on the show. That didn't come along until 1978, when Matt Wilson located one in the mail, and Matt's been with us ever since. To date, we've read more than 3,000 of your dedications. Over the years, musical trends have come and gone, from disco to new wave, from punk to hip-hop, from bubblegum to rock. We've been there, counting them down. It's been a great 39 years. And it's really been an honor for me. But we're not finished yet. Our first #1 back in 1970 was Mama Told Me Not to Come by 3 Dog Night. And we've got one more song to go. The #1 song in the USA for a 3rd week is Second Chance by Shinedown. There it is, the #1 song in the USA on American Top 20 for a 3rd week, Second Chance by Shinedown. I'd like to share with you something I've learned over the years. Success doesn't happen in a vacuum. You're only as good as the people you work with and the people you work for. I've been lucky. I've worked for and with the very best. American Top 20 is a production of the Premier Radio Networks. AT20 was created by Casey Kasem and Don Bustani. Produced by Lori Crimmy. Our staff includes Matt Wilson, Merrill Schindler, and Toby James Petty. Production and engineering by Michael Cooper and Ray Hernandez. I'm Casey Kasem. Now, one more time, the words I've ended my show with since 1970. Keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars.
And that was your dad.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I told you sometimes I get really emotional when
No,
I hear his voice.
and I want you to be, because it's good. Tears
I don't want you to be.
No. Tears are the disinfectant that keep your heart soft. And thank you for sharing your heart with me, because I absolutely, the fact that this happened 2 years ago, or less than 2 years,
little over 2 years.
little over 2 years ago, and the things that you're doing, I'm so grateful that I got to have you here to share everything, including this.
Well, thank you. Thank you, for having me. That was a very hard show for my dad to get through.
Yeah.
It took, they said the first show took 18 hours. I think that one took 8 or 9. It was very hard because his disease was so, it was progressing, and it was very hard emotionally for him. Yes. Yeah, and I can hear it in his voice.
Yeah, I can too. And so take me back. This is what I do. Take me back as if I was there, and just share with me what was going on, how, obviously, I know that you were, the three of you were the bright spots in his life, and how close he was, and how great of a dad he was.
He was incredible, and he was, he's the reason I am who I am today, with work ethic. I have, morals, and I'm a good person, I think, because of him.
Right.
I'm a fighter because of him. I am who I am today because of my dad.
Yeah.
And I think all three of us are. We all are, we at a very, young age, we were working because my dad didn't give us everything. And thank God for that. At the time, we're like, come on, Dad, you have money. What's going on? And of course, he would help us. We were in school, and he would help here and there and what we needed. But if it was anything more, it was like, get a job.
Right.
If you want to really, believe in yourself, and you want self-esteem, get a job. If you want to really, when you buy your own things, you will care for them. If I get them for you, you won't.
Absolutely. Esteem with esteemable acts.
Yes.
Yeah. So
and he
taught
was
you
dead
that.
on. That's why we all work so hard, and that's why we all are very self-sufficient.
That's to a brother and a sister, and
yes.
Are you the baby?
No, I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest.
Everybody thinks I'm the baby.
Well, that's because you must use oil of Olay.
Botox
you look
and
really
fillers. Yeah. I'll tell you everything I've done to my face.
Okay, we'll talk about that after.
Later. But I do. I have a show. It's called Ageless and Healthy. It's starting again in January. But I talk about everything. 'Cause instead of surgery, you can do all these things that my dad was the same way. He loved health and looking good, and yeah, I think I got that from him too.
There you go. And he divorced your mom when you were
my
how
mom
old?
Divorced him.
Your mom divorced him.
My dad would have stayed with my mom.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
he was that kind of guy. Yeah.
And how old were you?
7.
7.
Yeah.
So did you understand the why, or how
yeah,
was
very
it?
much so, which is crazy. Being at 7, I completely understood. Everybody's phone's going off right now.
This is the phone show.
Yeah.
So sorry about that one. That was mine. That was my white mom. So so you were 7 and you understood what happened.
Well, I understood because it wasn't a happy relationship, and a lot of fighting, a lot of yelling, and I remember when they said they were getting divorced, literally thinking, oh gosh, things are going to get better.
Right.
And at 7, and my brother and sister broke down. I remember the scene as if I'm there. I can tell you exactly where we were. We were outside the house, sitting on the brick, and they were sitting down. My brother, was in my mom's, and my sister was being held by my dad, and I'm standing there in between them, and I'm the only one not crying because I'm like, something had to change. I remember that.
Right.
Being such a kid thinking that, which is so weird.
That is weird.
Yeah, but it affected me. It was not an easy thing to go through.
Right.
Then it got worse when my father married, Jean Kasem, because she hated us for no reason. It was
from the very beginning.
From the very beginning.
So there was never a good relationship.
There was before they got married. She pretended to like us, and right after they got married, there was some niceties. And I remember I actually have some, she was the first person that got me out in the ocean on a boogie board on a wave. I remember that. Like that was amazing for me because I was never going in the ocean.
Right,
there were little things. She took us to a toy store once and she's like, get what you want. And I thought, wow. My dad's never even done that. It's like, what? Get what we want?
Right.
Okay. And I remember there were some fun things. And then all of a sudden it was just like at the wedding. Well, I wasn't there. She when they decided to get married, she made it very, very clear that this was her family now. That you're not coming to the wedding, that you're not part of this family. She made it very clear. And I think that's a decision my father regretted by going along with it. Because there were other kids there. There were flower girls there. Everybody brought their kids, but we weren't there.
Wow.
Yeah, and after that, I mean, it just got worse and worse and worse, and just we didn't understand why Gene hated us so much as little kids. We couldn't get it and understand it, and it was very hard. That was very hard.
He had 50 custody, or
we were there
visitation?
like the weekends, and my mom on the weekdays, and it wasn't every other. It was every weekend we were with him.
Okay.
And so, and there was a time in my life when I wasn't doing well in school. I think it was third grade, and second or third grade, and he came, even though he was at the height of his career. He came every single day to make sure I turned my homework in, to make sure he was there on recess, making sure. I mean, he was a really hands-on parent.
Okay.
And called us every day.
Yeah. Even
through our adulthood. He was on the phone or left us messages every day. And to then, we'll go back 3 years ago, to be told you'll never see your dad again just because of spite for no other reason. We weren't, my dad always told us, hey, I have a trust for you. And that was it. We didn't discuss money. We didn't care. We were all self-sufficient. We didn't care about money, but she made it into money. Oh, why do you want to see your dad? Like, why? What are you talking about? He's at our house every weekend, sometimes, twice a week. We can see him when we want.
Right.
We call him on the phone. She ripped his phone lines out. She fired the staff. And then she isolated him completely, not just from us kids, but from all of his friends, from his own brother, from everyone who wanted to get a hold of him. And they were calling us, panicking.
This was 3 years ago?
A little over 3 years ago.
So he was 80 years old at the time?
He died at 82. So yeah, he was.
So 79.
Yeah, and we had a picture with him on his birthday, April 27th, a little party we gave him.
Okay.
And a few months later, that's when she said, you'll never see him again.
Okay, go back a little. When was the Parkinson's diagnosis?
In 2007.
So how old was he then? So that was 70 something.
He was in his 70s.
My mom has Parkinson's.
Yeah.
She's 83. So when I saw that,
but if it was Parkinson's, he'd still be alive today. It was Lewy body dementia that they finally, and they could have had both, but Parkinson's and Lewy body mimic each other.
Okay.
So you really can't, in the beginning, you really don't know because there's the shaking, but then the dementia really kicked in. And you can have Parkinson's with dementia. This was it was a different kind of dementia. But one thing that he never had, he never didn't know who we were.
Okay.
Always knew who we were.
Okay.
He would just have hallucinations about other things, but he knew who was there always.
Okay.
And that's what made it so painful because we know that he knew that we weren't coming to visit and being told that we didn't want to and, being told that we're not calling. He had a phone in his room. Everybody in that house, there have been people who've contacted the police or contacted me who've said exactly what went on. She left a phone in his room and didn't connect it. And he couldn't get out of bed. And he thought, nobody's calling me. I mean, how you can't get more evil. I mean, that's just, you don't do that. And not only is it evil, it's unconstitutional and it's, you go against federal law there. There's been federal law put into place about communication and being able to communicate, especially if you're in a nursing home or a hospital. So if people are going through this right now and they have a loved one that's in a nursing home or hospitals, a public residence, not a private, they can take the federal law and you can find it. You can just find me at Carrie@kcmcares.org. Ask me for it. I'll send it to you. You walk in there and tell them, if you don't let me see my loved one who wants to see me, I will sue you. And they a lot of times they don't even know there's a federal law, the nursing home. Mine didn't. The nursing home didn't. And immediately once they realized it was law, they let me see my dad. So whether it's under guardianship, a spouse, whatever it may be, if that person wants to see you and they're in a public public residence, not a private, you have every right to see that person and they have every right to see you.
Did you ever talk tell your dad, even growing up, as a teenager, I'm sure you felt the love. Sarcasm is another service I offer from Jean. Did you ever tell, like, Dad?
Yes.
And what, he's torn?
In the beginning, it was like, oh, just give her time. I remember he kept saying she's really insecure.
Right. I was going to say.
Yeah. And he kept making excuses.
Right.
As we got older, there was this ongoing thing my dad would say, and it went on for a very long time. He kept saying, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. I promise. It's going to get better. And there was a time where all in his car, and I remember this, we're driving, and Jean had done something horrible. And we said, Dad, why are you allowing this?
Right.
Why do you let her do this and this and this? What is going on, Dad?
Right.
And he turned to us and he goes, it's going to get better. And we all took a moment, and all of us at the same time burst out laughing because there was nothing, 15, 16, 17 years of it's going to get better. And he knew it. It was not getting better. It was getting worse. And it was, it's either you're going to cry or you're going to laugh. And at that point it was like, we just laughed. There's nothing, it's not getting better. It's getting worse, Dad. And he couldn't do anything about it. In the time that he did want to do something about it,
it was too late.
It was too late. He was too sick and he was too weak. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's what he always fought for the underdog. Always.
Yeah.
No matter,
it's like hope springs eternal. He's like a living hope springs eternal. And it's obvious. I'm an organizational psychologist, so it's obvious her angst came from massive amounts of insecurity, because from what I read, she was an aspiring, and then she found him. So but it's just so sad what happened. And so you flashed the law, you got to see him.
I had attorney Martha Patterson on my radio show out here in my third year doing, it's called Gervie's Law. It's a law show, and we interview lawyers and, we talk about things that are in the news that deal with law.
Yeah.
And Martha Patterson comes on. And she said to me, you can see your dad. And this is after all the attorneys, after months of being in court. I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, he's at Berkeley East. TMZ actually called us up and said, we found your dad. This is after 4 months of looking for him. They said, we found where she put him. And they told us. They didn't even put it out on their site. Wow. They just told us.
That's nice of them.
Oh, yeah. And I will always hold a soft spot for Gary, who told me this. And he's, it was very, very kind of him to do so.
Right.
So we went there, and they wouldn't let us in. And a few weeks later, I'm on the show, and I have this elder law attorney. And she said, you can get in to see your dad. There's a federal law created by a CANAR, California Association for Nursing Home Reform, Pat McGinnis, 30 years ago. What are you talking about?
Right.
How do I not know this? So Monday, my show was Saturday, Monday morning, we march in. She actually said, not only do I know your dad wants to see you? I was in court when Judge Leslie Green said Casey Kasem wants to see his kids. Now figure it out in the hallway. Yeah. So she marched in there with the court transcripts, with the federal law, and within a half an hour we were sitting next to my dad.
Oh,
and this is where the Reels documentary goes from there. And if you
sent me the link, and I watched it, and I was mesmerized. And I do the research because I just got back from Florida, so I watched it yesterday, and I'm like, I was just shocked, because you hear or you see or what gets reported, it has all of the whatever, so you really don't know what happened.
Right.
But that this could happen, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that you go to see someone that you love, who loves you, and all of a sudden you can't.
Right.
I mean, that's just like, what?
I know. People don't realize that once you turn 18, you have no rights to see your adult parents. None. Zero. So if your adult parent becomes disabled or sick, and there's a caretaker living in the house, or you're in somebody else's home, they can actually say you're never going to see your parents again, and it's legal. They don't have to let you in that house. And people say, oh, well, I'd knock down the door. Well, you'd be in jail and then really never see her. Well, I wouldn't let that happen. Really? I did everything. I called the police. I called Adult Protective Services. I went to court, spent $350,000. And even though my dad said, I want to see my children, I want my children in charge of my medical care, to
In
the
writing?
judge, to the court-appointed doctor, Dr. Trader, to the PVP attorney, that's his attorney appointed to him by the court, said the same thing, says Sam, and then they all took it to the judge and said, Judge, let Casey see his kids. Because there's no, she literally couldn't rule on that because there was no fight for power of attorney and there was no fight for guardianship. She could not rule on visitation. You have to go through an entire trial, an entire fight just to rule on visitation. I changed the law. This is when this happened to me, I started getting hundreds of letters from people going through the same thing. They couldn't see their parents. They were being stopped, whatever it may be. And it's a common sense law that needed to change. So Assemblyman Mike Gatto, after hearing my story, his office called me. And my stepfather is a lobbyist. My lawyer had written a bill in 2011 concerning the same thing. It was like it all came together.
Yeah.
So serendipitous, right? It just happened. And we all got together, wrote this bill that I've now taken state to state. It's gotten passed in 8 states, including California. Yay!
Yay!
Yay! Where's my applause? Where's my applause?
I know. There we go.
And then right now it's in 13 other states, going through the legislatures right now. So I'll be lobbying like crazy this next year. But yeah, so if you are going through this and you can't see your parent, please contact KSEMcares.org. It's KASEM, cares.org. We have a hotline. We have a helpline. We have support. I go out and I speak all over the country concerning this.
So glad that this all happened.
And I'm telling you, even in death, my dad is in me. There's that spark.
Right. So I'm mixed. Okay, so I'm super grateful that this horrific thing has resulted in something so powerfully needed and fabulous. And that is amazing. And you win hands down Dr. Marissa's Beneficial Presence on the Planet Award.
Aww.
Hands down.
Well, thank
hands
you.
down.
Thank you.
More applause. You are my poster child example of someone who takes what's happened to them and alchemizes the pain and comes out and turns all of that into something that's going to benefit and help others around the planet. And I am grateful to you for that, and I honor you for that. And then at the same time, my heart breaks wide open because I can't even imagine what it's like to sort of have this happen a little late so that you couldn't spend that time in the last years when he wanted you and you couldn't be there. And that's tough.
Oh, now it's my turn for a handhold.
Tough because my dad is on the other side from lymphoma, and watching him for 8 months, it was, but I was there. I got to be there with him. Yeah. And you didn't. And I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm really sorry for that.
Thank you. I feel just bad for my dad being alone because not only did she put him in these different facilities. Now, this is a man who had $80 million and who could afford as 24-hour care in his home. He wanted to be in his home. He wanted to die in his home. And especially when you have dementia, you don't keep changing the scenery. Right. You don't do that to someone.
Right.
And it wasn't as though she had to have him in there. She didn't.
Right.
And he wanted to be at home. And those were his wishes. But that's not what happened. So he was moved from facility to facility, and he was alone because she didn't visit. We know this because of the records. She put him in a place, Berkeley East, and we know that we talked to the nurses there and everything. They never saw her there. She didn't visit. So not only were we begging to see him, not only are his friends saying we'll be with him, she's not there. She's not there. He's alone. That is what's heartbreaking to me. A man who gave everything to his wife and family, everything, and she just threw him out with the trash.
Your half-sister, did she visit?
I've said I'm not going to speak about her at all.
It's
okay, and it's fine. She's the only one I don't. Unfortunately, You can get the traits of your mom or your dad, some both. She got all the traits of and I feel terrible for her. I feel like, and I don't know her at all. I know that she has done some pretty horrible things.
Okay.
But I wanted to keep her out of this as much because I think we do have a wrongful death suit, and she is included in it.
Okay.
But I just feel that I feel bad for her.
Yeah. I don't know anything about her. All I know is that he had another child with Jean. So,
and she's just like Jean. She's just like her. So and that's all I know of her.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
And
yeah, that's okay. We don't have to go there. And actually, I need to just take a quick break to thank the sponsor of today's show and to take a little break to find some Kleenex too. But we will be right back after a little station break to thank the sponsor who helps bring the show about. We'll be back in 2 and 2. Peace in and peace out. Get ready for the holidays and celebrate creativity at the Timeless Treasures Boutique. Come to Huntington Beach today until Christmas Eve for all your needs for decorating your home with colorful love for all who will be coming home for the holidays, and a free gift if you mention Dr. Marissa. So come and enjoy the holidays California style. For time and directions, go to www.timelesstreasuresboutiques.com. And we are back. Thank you to Timeless Treasures, and I will be there on Thursday. So if you come and mention Dr. Marissa, you'll get a gift. And also go visit my surrogate mom, Creations by Dolores's booth. She makes beautiful knitting stuff, and it's fabulous. You'll be supporting my family, my surrogate family. And if you've just tuned in, you are listening to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa Pay. And we are broadcasting live today out of the Sunset Gower Studios, if it's Tuesday, on ubnradio.com. And if you're listening on Thursday or Saturday, it's from my syndicated CNBC News Radio channel, KCAA AM 1050, FM 106.5, 102.3, and then all over on iHeartRadio. And today we have my most recent and very, very, very large winner of my Beneficial Presence on the Planet Award, Carrie Kasem, the daughter of the late great, and he is on the other side, Casey Kasem. He's teaching my dad, I'm sure, something about radio, which he didn't understand why his daughter would ever be on the radio, but I'm sure that he's schooling him, and I know that they're in a good place. I do know that. Yeah. In spite of all of this, I know that where they are, there is no pain, there is no loneliness, there is no missing. So I take comfort in that. I know you take comfort in that. And so I know that you've taken, you're still doing radio.
Yes.
You're still doing some shows, but you're also really working hard to make sure that no one goes through what you had to go through, you and your family.
That's right.
And not seeing. So, it's interesting when I watched that. Is that going to be broadcast sometime?
They're replaying it a lot. It's the Reels channel. It's it's a very morbid title. It's Autopsy, the final hours of, and it's different celebrities. So this is the final hours of Casey Kasem.
Okay.
And what I really liked about this and why I decided to participate in this kind of show, and my sister did, and some of my dad's friends and an investigator decided to participate, is because they do the show off of fact. They take the medical records,
right,
the court records,
right,
and they go through that. It's not just hearsay and me saying whatever I want. They really, they said, we're going to look at the medical records. We're going to tell that story. And so I got together with my family, and we talked to our lawyers, and we said, could this hurt us? Could this help us?
Right.
And they said, well, if they're really going to use the medical records and we turn those over, then there's only one story they can tell.
Okay.
And we put our faith in that. And they did. They told the story that was in the medical records. And they actually, one of the producers said we had to literally go to our lawyers in the channel and say, look, usually we have to give a fair and balanced kind of, both sides. There isn't one.
There isn't one.
Right.
And, Well, yeah. I mean, even like balanced news that showed, when you tried to, once you got the court order and you went to try to get him, the news covered her reaction to that.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of ridiculous, that she plays something that obviously sounds like he's in pain.
He's in pain.
But it's not connected to her saying anything,
No,
so it was like almost incriminating on her behalf.
It's really the actual lawyer, and what you're talking about for people that are just tuning in is when I was in Washington after my stepmother ripped my father, Casey Kasem, out of his bed at 2:30 in the morning at Berkeley East facility in Santa Monica, then decided to take him, around Los Angeles to hide him until she found a place in Las Vegas, drove him to Las Vegas, where this is a man that needed to be transported by gurney, needed IV fluids, and had a feeding tube. Everything was disconnected. She, was pouring Ensure down his feeding tube, which clogged everything. He was very ill by the time he got to the Vidara Hotel. In fact, the nurses left and got lawyers. And yeah, this is very wrong.
Yeah.
Then she
even
finds
the transport guy called
the Adult Protective Services and said there's something wrong here.
Right.
So she gets him to Washington. By that time, he's got a massive bed sore on his back. The actual bed sore that they show in the footage for autopsy is actually, you could times that by 4 or 5. I mean, it was much bigger. It was almost the whole backside of him. And he had a kidney infection, respiratory infection. He was very, very ill. And then she decides, oh, hey, I found some friends in Washington that I knew in Guam back in the 60s. Let's transport him there. So
Washington State.
Yeah, and then
by car.
But this was by an air ambulance, and this
Okay.
is the guy. The ambulance picked him up and called Adult Protective Services immediately because they weren't going to a hospital; they were going to some home.
Right.
And that's when we found him, because the order went out for Adult Protective Services to work with me, because at that point I had become conservator/guardian over my father because of the egregious behavior of Gene Kasem.
So the court of law had enough evidence to change conservatorship,
Which doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
does
I've
not
never
happen.
had
That
that.
does not
I've
happen.
never heard that.
No.
So the data
It was
had to
that
be
bad.
pretty bad.
Yeah.
And substantiated data.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The doctor wrote a letter to the court saying what she did was going to possibly kill him.
Oh.
Yeah, and it did. So what happened was, I had to go up and have my guardianship, my conservatorship heard in Washington. And that took 3 weeks. Like, are you kidding me? Get my dad to a hospital.
Right,
What is he
right.
doing? And I got in there to see him. There's a fan above his head, a little tiny TV. He's sweating. He's moaning. He doesn't look good. And remember, I had just seen him a few weeks earlier where he could talk. He sat up
snuck into
when we snuck
Berkeley.
into Berkeley, and we were allowed into Berkeley. And he was sick, but he was okay. He wasn't
Right.
about to die. And you
Right.
saw that in the
Right.
medical records
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
show.
yeah.
And then here he is, like, actively dying. And I'm begging the court to get him to the hospital. And they're telling the court, we're on vacation. He's fine. He's dying. And so when I finally get him to the hospital, I call my brother, I call my sister, I call the whole family. I said, I don't think Dad's going to make it, because they told me he doesn't have much time. Everybody comes, and for 15 days, we're around his bed, we're praying, we're doing everything we can to save his life for that first week. And you see in the show how the fluids were killing him, how his organs were shutting down. He wasn't digesting his food. And that was another myth that went out there in the press, was that I unplugged him. No, very far from it. When he was dying, and we had 3 doctors say it's futile. You're going to kill him if you keep him on fluid, because it's going to drown him. And we heard it, and the coughing was horrible. And the minute we would get him off fluids, he'd stop. He wasn't drowning anymore. So they said, look, it's time for hospice. And that was the hardest decision I ever made in my life. And then to hear in the media, I pulled the plug. Are you kidding me? Yeah. Like, it was so hard to hear all the lies come out from that woman's mouth. But I just kept going. I knew that I had made it this far, and my dad was not going to die alone, and he knew we were there, and he knew he was loved, and he died with all of us surrounding him. You don't see that in the documentary. You just see us kids, but it was friends and family. We're all there.
Good.
And we all had our hands on him, and we were all praying. We were all talking to him. Everybody. His brother, my aunt, his best friend, one of his best friends, my brother, my sister, and me, and Jean and Liberty were allowed to come in there. The court, in fact, stated that they could be there. We asked for them because we thought my dad was holding on.
Thank you for telling me that.
We asked for them. We called up her lawyer and we said, please have them come. He's holding on for them. He's holding on.
Right.
But now I believe actually he was holding on for the date that he died. He died June 15th, which was Father's Day. After we were told we were estranged, that he didn't love us, blah, blah, all the nonsense that came out there. He waited to die on Father's Day. A month later, and this is already, I have my foundation going, I have the bills going, I'm doing everything I can to see him through the law. A month later, I get on the computer and I look up June 15th. Just to look it up. I don't know, something compelled me to do it.
Right.
And I froze and I turned white. And I swear I must have staring at that computer for minutes, because 9 years ago, the UN designated June 15th as World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. Yeah. You can't get a bigger sign than that. You can't get a bigger sign than that.
Wow.
Yeah. So I am thinking, well, he's waiting for his daughter. And maybe he was, but I feel like he was waiting for that day.
The message.
Yeah. And he said, keep going. I know it. And he was with me that for a month. He was with me by my side. I felt him. And now he goes, I know he's visiting other people and with other people. But Jean decided that, to give us the one last stab in the back, that she was going to find a place as far away as possible and bury my father. So she forged his death certificate, put that they were living in Jerusalem for 18 years. Yeah, I know. Didn't spell his name right. Didn't have his birth date of his parents or their parents' names. Forged everything and tried to get him in Jerusalem. They said no. My dad's never been there. He's never been to Israel, never been to Jerusalem, never been in that area.
Right.
And his parents came from Lebanon, but his mom was born in the USA. My dad was born here in the U.S.
Right.
He's a U.S. citizen. He wanted to be buried in Forest Lawn, but she couldn't get him there, so she takes him to her boyfriend's hometown of Montreal, Canada, tried to get him there. Then we stopped that. Then writes a letter stating she's Norwegian to get him into Norway. I call up her family. I call up Jean Kason's family and said, are you Norwegian? They said, absolutely not. I said, would you write a letter to the government stating you're not Norwegian and that your grandmother's not Norwegian? They did. We stopped the burial in Norway for about 4 months. All of his friends and family wrote. He got a huge petition going, and it stopped it. But then after 4 months, they buried him in an unmarked grave, which is still unmarked. And he is in Norway, a place he's never been, a place where people don't know him or never heard a show. And that was the last, here, kids, this is what you get. But the one thing, this is so telling about my stepmother. If she really knew my dad, she would know that his body didn't mean anything. Right. That he was a spirit having a human experience. That's right. And he believed that. And he believed in reincarnation. And he believed he was a very spiritual being. She can never take him from me because he is with me always. Always. And so the fact that she thinks that was
so
like,
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's with me. I don't need to go sit by a grave and
I don't go to my father's.
Yeah.
He's not there.
He's not there. But some people, and I understand, some people feel closer, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And totally a lot of his fans wanted, and a lot of his other family members wanted to be there.
Right. Well, if you're a fan, you go and support the work of his daughter. That's what you do in honor of Casey Kasem.
And also, can I say something else?
Yes,
I'm an
please.
ambassador for Youth for Human Rights, and my dad's human rights were violated. My human rights were violated, and I did not know my 30 human rights, and most people don't. Most people can't even name one, and that's okay. That's where I was.
Yeah.
Know your 30 human rights. They're very simple. They're common sense. And if you see something wrong in your neighborhood, in your school, in your city, in your state, in this country, you can change the law like I did. Yeah. And I didn't believe it until I was put in this situation. So I'm an ambassador for Youth for Human Rights and United for Human Rights. And what's so wonderful, and if you have a friend or family member who's a teacher, I'll tell you something. Dr. Marissa, this is amazing. Go on to youthforhumanrights.org, click on Educator's Kit.
Okay.
And they will send you the most beautifully packaged educator's kit. You can teach your class for an entire semester, a day, 2 days. It gives you all the materials for the classroom, DVD, beautiful, beautiful DVD on each one of the 30 human rights. Yep. And I can't tell you how many teachers love this. Yes, there you go. They love it. And now they have this curriculum, because I know friends of mine who are teachers that buy a lot of the stuff for the classrooms.
Right.
And you don't get paid enough to do that.
Yeah.
So this is a beautiful, beautiful way to teach kids human rights. And one of the most beautiful stories that I heard from Mary Shuttleworth, who's the president of Youth for Human Rights, she said there was somebody that went in and was teaching human rights to a classroom. And they went through the human rights.
Yeah.
And there was a boy in there that wrote a letter to his parents that said, I was going to kill myself today. And I sat through this class, this presentation. And because I know my human rights and because of the video and because of what I saw, I decided not to. I mean, it's that powerful.
I've seen some of the commercials because I met y'all when I was invited to speak at the Youth Summit, Compassionate California in Action.
Yes.
And it was beautiful and transforming, which is why I wanted to have y'all on the show for my Christmas episode.
I'm so glad. And this is a great Christmas present too.
Yes.
So even if you're not an educator, they'll send you all this free material. It's beautiful.
That's the Asian Oprah giveaway for the day.
There you go.
Go to the site, get it, use it, and guess which one I accidentally just opened up to. Right number 14, the right to seek a safe place to live. That's your dad.
Yep.
That's
and the
your
right
dad.
to life.
Yeah.
And no torture.
No torture.
Yeah.
And he's not tortured anymore.
Right.
And I know there's forgiveness work to be done. I'm going to be working on it with Jean. But
you know what? I always thought that too. And there was a book I read when I was a kid about forgiving but when I really learned the word forgiveness and I looked it up, forgiving is almost like it's okay. And it's not okay what she did.
Right.
But I'll tell you something. I don't hold hate in my heart.
Good.
And I will not give her any more anger. I will not give her any more of my emotion.
Right.
Never again.
Good.
What she did was absolutely wrong.
Right. She's going to have to bump into herself, but you don't have to spend the energy doing it.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely. Right. Well, because you're needed, your energy. I saw that beautiful part where you said you've done it in 4 states and
8 states.
8 states now since this recording, and I love the tie-in to what he says at the end of the show.
Yeah. He says, and I end my speeches with this because my dad always said, keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars. Well, there's 50 stars on the flag, and I have 8 stars. That's 8 states. I have 42 more stars to go. So I'll keep reaching for those stars.
Please do. And please help. I am definitely going to help. Do everything you can to support Carrie in this very, very noble life in her father's honor journey. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you. And one last, we've been applauding the whole time. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Absolutely. And it is time for the end of the show, the Balance Bar, where I invite you to come and balance with me. And the first thing is to just say, if you'd like to come hear me speak in India, I've been honored and invited to be part of the Women's Economic Forum on the Advisory Council as well, speaking there May. So you can go to my website or my Facebook to see details on that. I think I'm going to offer you up as a speaker there, actually, now that I think about it. And then day 20 on the 21-day fast from complaining. It is actually day 21 today. It is the end of this round for the fast. Is it the 20th or the 20th? Oh, it's the 20th. Mm-hmm. I'm off today. So my favorite relationship teacher for today's tip on how not to complain says, if you want a dog, don't buy a cat. And that's Don Miguel Ruiz, best-selling author, who's actually been on my show. An awful lot of complaints come from unmet expectations of people, especially when they're your insignificant others. For example, if you want a mate that smells nice, likes to travel, and has free time, don't pick a smoking homebody workaholic. And I'm very proud to say that this fast has been going on for 65 months. Round 66 starts resolution day, January 1st. So if you haven't joined the 21-day fast from complaining with Dr. Marissa, please do go to the number 4balance.org, register there, and then we can change this negative energy going around, especially in our government right now, with some positive energy. As well, please do join me this weekend for the holidays. I have celebrating here some accessories. Celebrate Christmas with me as I sing with the Agape International Spiritual Choir at the Center in Culver City. Please come Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. As well, if you'd like to come work with me, I'm doing retreats this year in Sedona, Costa Rica, and Nepal. So if you'd like more information on coming and learning balanced Tai Chi Gong or any kind of life balance, promoting peace from the inside out, then come work with me. As well, next year, we already have confirmed guests all the way up to June, including Lila Ali, the daughter of Muhammad Ali, Marianne from Gilligan's Island, and shows on angels, business success, and more sex and relationship experts. Yes, my last week of the month series, Sexual Healing with Dr. Marissa. My show is a cross between NPR Entertainment Tonight and Hay House Spirituality. So next week we are doing Sexual Healing with Dr. Marissa. My guest is Amanda Chattel. She's a powerful writer based in New York who threw a giant divorce party and sent her ex a package to remember. So we'll talk about that next week. And then I've never had a show on sex toys. It is with some reluctance that we're doing it. However, you know that I'm determined to make pleasure a G-rated topic. So tune in next week, every Tuesday, Naturally High noon, Thursday 7, Saturday at 10 for another scintillating episode of Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa Pay. That's P for positive, EI. And remember, it's all about balance. Peace in and peace out.
Before the dawn, for I am weak and he is strong. He lifts me up so I can see how dark it is before the dawn. It was cold outside and dangerous, and I couldn't see my own good. People hurt me on the outside, and inside I started to bleed. How dark. It's amazing how you can speak right